Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of Triple Play. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to support those that support us. We want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Brookes Bible College. Brookes is an awesome Bible college. They have an up and coming seminar coming up. If you haven't already seen through our website or other social media, keep your eyes open. It's on biblical counseling. So if you're somebody in the area, you want to get a little bit more information on counseling, how to maybe handle people in your church, maybe learn just even in your own life, your own circle, how to better minister to people through counseling. Check out the seminar. They've got breakout sessions for women, for men, and on different topics. All that said, too, Brookes Bible College, you're looking to get a good degree at a low cost so you can jump into ministry. Check them out. Just can't say enough about Brookes Bible College. Excited about those guys and excited about their up and coming seminar. With that said, I'm looking forward to today's conversation. We have a repeat offender. We have Nikki and Danielle here. Danielle, you've been here before. Nikki's the new one. She's new.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Nikki. You're obviously with Resource One, and Danielle obviously valued you, so you're here today. So those are good things, but tell us a little bit about your background, where you came from, where you grew up, the St. Louis question, where did you go to school, and then how did you get plugged into Resource One?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Sikeston, Missouri. The big follow-up with that is always the home of the thrilled rolls. Yes, that's me. So from there, I went to school down there, graduated, ended up actually meeting my husband at SEMO.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So I did my schooling online. It was much better for me that way. I needed it in front of me and it to be on my terms. So I did that, but we met at SEMO, and he's actually from Redbud up here. So he got a job after we graduated, and he had the chance to move back up here, and I jumped at it with him. So that's how we kind of ended up back in this area a little bit. Resource One, like Danny kind of mentioned earlier, we had a mutual friend that we met through that she actually worked with, that I kind of worked with a little, but more just on a personal level. And when she passed her CDFA exam and was kind of looking around for someone to maybe partner, do business with, luckily, the person that introduced us, she spoke really highly of me. She spoke very highly of Danny, and we just kind of met to see,
we hired Nikki. I passed my CDFA exam. I became a certified divorce financial analyst, and I said, how do I get this thing going? So we hired Nikki for consulting for 2 hours, and we felt maybe she could actually be a valuable add on the team. So here she is.
Yeah, I am. It's just such a blessing and joy, though, to get to be able to be brought on. I know you talked a little bit about Paul and John. They are just such a blessing and a gift, and the team that they have created. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. It's something that you don't see. You kind of feel like, oh, companies create families, and they say that until they get you in. And that is just not what John and Paul do. They create that family. And it's just incredible to see, and then to get the chance to be a part of. I would have been insane had I not jumped to be a part of this group. So here I am.
And you were with Paul over in O'Fallon for a little while?
Yeah, so I actually work out of that office. I still work mostly with Danny in the office over in St. Albans, but yeah, I am out of the office in O'Fallon. So I feel like a little bit of a liaison, kind of. I get to work with both of them pretty closely. So.
And does your husband, now that you guys are over that way, are you guys by Redbud?
So we're not by Redbud. We are actually in Swansea, but as opposed to the 2 hours that we were away from grandparents, they're really excited now to have us about 20-30 minutes apart. So
yeah, that's great. I was just curious.
Yeah,
Redbud's beautiful area.
Beautiful. Christmas, do you go through at Christmas just to see it? It's so pretty.
It's that little area is really a neat area. So right by the river, kind of
hometown feel, that just small town. Go outside, play ball on the weekends.
You ever notice, like, Southern Illinois it's like its own country. It's almost like its own state, like it really is. It's so much different. You understand why they want to break off from Northern Illinois all the time, because it is such a different culture than, Northern Illinois when you go to like Springfield or you go to Chicago or any of the, Bloomington, all the bigger mid-north area of the state. So Yeah. All right. So let's jump into you're here, you're back, and you guys have already mentioned this. You got certified. Um, I got all sorts of questions about this. So because it's a very unique thing. What made you guys want to get into this? So let's start with some motivation. Did you see a need and want to jump in? Did you find it fascinating and decide to pursue it? I'm just a little curious as to. It seems like a very unique niche to try to get certified in.
It all started with John Brookes. We were at our national conference and we're sitting around the table and everyone's talking about what designation they're getting. And most of the team at Resource One Advisors is getting their CFP to become a certified financial planner, which is one of the most incredible personal and professional things you could accomplish as a financial advisor. And I personally don't find myself sitting in front of numbers all day. I'd rather sit in front of people all day and talk about life, what's going on at home, at work. So we're sitting around the table at the national conference and everyone's going through what designation they're working on. And John tells an executive that he thinks I'd be great at divorce work. And I almost fell out of my chair because the clients that I serve are in their 80s or 90s and have all had beautiful, successful marriages. So the topic of divorce was so foreign to me, coming from a family that never really experienced divorce. My grandparents were happily married. My mom chose to be single her whole life, so I never experienced what it was like for a marriage to fall apart firsthand. So it was very foreign to me. And I prayed about it and thought about it and realized the statistics of the divorce rates here are astronomical. I'm in my 20s. My friends are getting married. Are they getting married too early? What is this going to look like in 20 years? The friends that I have in their 40s and 50s, their marriages were struggling. So the reality was that divorce isn't unfortunately going anywhere, and there is going to be a need to serve. And we're finding, money and finances are one of the most common conflicts that appears in a marriage. So if we can be that resource to help someone who's going through a divorce, that's great. By no means do we say, hey, do you hate your spouse? Come talk to us. It's, hey, if you are already in that situation, what better group of people than Resource One Advisors to come to work with you, to understand the financial aspects of life and walk you through. We will hold your hand through the financial aspects and also the emotional aspects as well. But what other group to help you? Because when you walk into a divorce attorney's office, they're experts with the legal side, but they're not financial experts necessarily. They know enough to be dangerous, but this is what we do day in and day out, is look at the finances. So I felt really compelled and called by God at the end of the day, with the hand of John Brookes guiding me along the way.
That's good. And one of the things that you mentioned was, and I see this in our side too, from a mortgage perspective, is that attorneys, they know enough to be dangerous.
Yes.
They understand some concepts, but they don't always understand the practicality of the business, that part, It's got, like on our side, it's got a little bit better, but I mean, I remember in the early 2000s, I would get people who were going through divorce, and they would say, my attorney says I just need to quit claim the other spouse off the loan. And I'd be like, well, that'll take them off the title, but that doesn't take them off the responsibility. They're still going to be on the credit report. And therefore, they're still tied to the house.
Yeah.
And they can't go buy another house without qualifying with that payment too. And
when it comes to the house, you need a mortgage expert to help you figure that out. When it comes to the finances, you need a financial expert. When it comes to the law, the lawyer is going to be on your side. So a common question we get is, well, if I already have a divorce attorney, why would I need a financial expert? And an attorney will help you through the financial side of it, but they're not going to necessarily be your advocate for figuring out what a just and fair number really would be, where we are going to really advocate for you in those numbers when it comes to alimony, child support, dividing assets, dividing liabilities. And unfortunately, there's some sticky situations, and we can help you get out of that. Maybe if a spouse is misusing marital funds,
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily leave you on the hook for those marital funds that walked out the door.
Yeah. And it really truly comes down to like consequences for decisions that you make financially. Attorneys, they know the law inside and out. That is their job. It is our job to know the financial aspects of divorce inside and out. So I think that's kind of where what we bring in different than what an attorney can do is just we know the decisions that are made today. We know the consequences of how that's going to play out 6 months to 6 years down the road. So that's the part that we look at.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always think of it this way too, is you wouldn't probably go to your attorney to get tax advice.
Exactly.
Your CPA, right? I mean, they may be able to give you some general principles about tax law, especially
to be dangerous.
Yeah. Well, and they may even know some things, like how you should handle some tax stuff, dealing with probate or things like that, right? But you wouldn't necessarily, go to them for the fine tuning of actually filling out a return.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that you would have financial advisors, especially in today's world. I mean, I don't know what the stats are, the most current stats, but the last time I looked, somewhere between 54 and 60% of all marriages end in divorce right now. So
what's crazy is gray divorce is popping up more often. So we are seeing people 55 plus getting divorced. I don't know if you've seen that in your business, but people are living longer. The pandemic,
And that changed drastically because I was working in this field during COVID when all of that happened. And it was just everything changed. The ages, the job, the things that you would think, okay, that makes sense that they would go through a divorce. They're in this field. They kind of travel a lot. They're out and about. They meet new people. But that's just not the case anymore. COVID kind of opened up a whole door of, a stay-at-home mom and just anything. And you were finding out information and there were phones at home or, computers, iPads. And at that point, it opened up a whole door of a broad range of ages getting divorced. So we've kind of really had to adapt with that as well because you have things in your head of, 40s, 50s, you're getting through a divorce. You kind of know what direction to go and what to look for. But once we hit that pandemic, we had 20s to, I had cases, women 60s, 65, going through divorces that they thought they were fine and had been with their spouse for so long. And then COVID happened and it just kind of, it opened a lot. It did. It opened a lot of people's eyes to things and that made us have to, adjust and reroute kind of and find different ways to go.
The current stat is for every marriage happening today, there is a 47% chance that marriage would end in divorce.
Yeah.
So it is right along that 50% line.
It is. And I think that too is just for first marriages as well. So that's not even including, the marriages that are second, third plus time around. that number just skyrockets.
Yeah. So. Absolutely. Wow. This is a heavy subject, It's you don't go into divorce with a skippity-doo heart, right? I mean, it's this is going to be kind of a heavier topic than normal podcast. That's okay.
Yeah.
So, but I see, when I'm talking to you guys, I see people that care. I can already tell that you guys care about people, and and when you said John Brookes looked at you and thought of you, that actually makes sense.
I agree.
Because what, if somebody's gone through divorce, if people say, well, that person is maybe more qualified, I actually think that it may not always be, because then they come with their presuppositions. How they were treated, how they felt they should have done things. And that isn't always the best way to look at things. Sometimes you want a more objective look, and an objective look from somebody who has a good heart. Yeah. Who has seen successful marriages play out in their lives, and also seen choices of singleness, right, with your own mom. Yeah. That there's nothing wrong with either one of those choices, and being able to walk people through this or that, I think makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. And I've been, so full disclosure, I've been divorced. I'm on my second marriage. So I feel like between the two of us, we come to that table with, I've been there, I've done it, I've seen it. She comes with not having been around it, not seen it. And I don't think she made the comment of, she's never seen a marriage fall apart or not work. And that's all I was ever raised around. So we kind of bring that dynamic of she has seen it one way, I have seen it another, I have been through it. So we're able to pull that together and kind of really work for what's best for each client. So it's a really neat dynamic that we bring in, that we're able to say, this is really hard. I've been through it. We're going to get you through it. It's,
Well, having that advocate, as you said earlier, a lot of people need an advocate. We've had a podcast but a few weeks back of a guy who was talking about being a medical advocate, and that, when you go to the medical system, needing somebody to kind of fight for for what's right, because you're just a number in the medical system anymore. As we've gone to more of a universal healthcare system, there's not, their answer is a one size fits all, but that's not necessarily the best thing for everybody, right? Yeah. So, and so, yeah, customization is certainly, especially if there's unique issues, desirable. And I can see that with you guys, people wanting to have some customization, somebody to give them advice, somebody to advocate on the side, not just an attorney, but somebody to walk with the attorney, to advise the attorney from a financial point of view, to take an objective look and try to figure out what's the best balance for both people. So that way somebody doesn't get hosed.
Yeah. And we work personally with the attorneys too. So, it's a very close relationship, a team that we try to create, and we try to create it across the board with anybody that the client has, in their corner. We want to be a part of that, and we sort of just hop on and join, we just want to create your team for what's going to work best for you.
Yeah. So what are some of the things you're finding as you obviously you've been doing this a little bit longer, it sounds like. So what are some of the more common things that you guys see when people come to you? Is there common questions they usually have? Is there common problems that you usually find that people kind of think about or don't consider?
Yeah, I do get a lot of questions. I've been doing this for a few years. One of the big ones is stay-at-home parents. Whenever you're going through a divorce, let's say if you've been married and stayed at home with the kids for the past 25 years, and now kids are grown and out of the house, and, well, do I have to go back to work? If I do, how long do I go? How does that work? Do I suddenly just have to, he gets everything and everything that I've done for 25 years that the kids don't count? Things like that have been coming up quite a bit, just trying to navigate and figure out what's
the number for the value of her? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like what is
for the partnership
you gave up? Exactly. So putting monetary value on that is extremely hard, obviously, but that is something that I've found has come up a lot. Also, self-employment is huge. So if you are, not even if you yourself are self-employed, if you are in a relationship where the other person is, that can have a lot of kind of issues with it. There have been hidden assets is a big thing that I have found, which is something that we can find. So if there are big businesses and big bank accounts, I have come across missing money, where money was different places, and kind of tracking and things like that. That has come up. That came up a little bit more after COVID, I will say, when couples were together. So that kind of came out a little bit more. Saw quite a bit of that, I want to say.
Something that I've noticed is one of the first steps of the divorce process is the financial affidavit and completing that. And that's your spreadsheet where you write down what everyone has. And so often we see at least one thing. There's usually something wrong, and it's by no fault. Maybe it's not intentional, but there's usually something that's incorrect on the financial affidavit. And that's your groundwork for how we do split assets up. So just having a second set of eyes looking at that financial affidavit can really change the trajectory of what that settlement looks like.
Yes.
Because when it does come to yours, mine, ours within a marriage, it can be tricky to see, who really does own what.
Yeah.
And I think just having someone there at the very first step can save so much time, and as a result, money, whether it be money when it comes to the settlement or money that you're paying an expert for.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to take this Dr. Phil quote. So if he ever listens to this, I'm totally sorry. But he says consistently that you divorce a completely different person than you marry. And I stand by that. That's what I like to tell clients. When you come in and we meet them for the first time, they're very, very emotional, very upset because it is a life-altering thing. It is very difficult to go through. And so we like to reassure them, just keep in mind this person that you're holding on to and you have all these ties to, it's not necessarily the same person now that is going through the divorce. So we kind of try to walk them through that process. That's kind of where that client expectation manager term comes in. I think that's one of our most important things for being a CDFA. We just manage that client and help them bring to light things that they may not realize they're even leaving out.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like you kind of do a lifestyle analysis a little bit, and sounds like you guys are trying to figure out what's the best situation. Is there a good formula for how you guys think about how somebody keeps the house or leaves the house?
Well, we typically do it. So what we do with a client when they come in, we kind of ask them after we've got the financial affidavit, we say, what is your home run? What is your end of the line? If you could have your perfect day at the end of this, what is everything that you want? So we start with that and kind of enter that into our system. And then we will come up with financial ways with all of the assets that's in there of how we could let them keep the house if that's what they want. Now, that may not even always be the case. That may not be something that they can do, but that is kind of how we start client conversations. What is your home run? What is the thing that you absolutely want? Some of them may not even want the house. Some of them may say it's got too many memories. We've got too many years there with kids. I just want to move. So we just kind of take it by what's their home run? How do we make that happen still equitably for both sides?
Do you find people that want to hold on to a house and they're not really in a position to be able to hold on to it? I find that in my business, sometimes I'll find people that really, they grew up, they really want to hold on to the house, but you're like, I get it.
It's the emotional ties that you can't.
All the memories and everything that's there, I totally understand. But the problem is you got to think long term, not short term. And, you're going to be around a long time, and this house can become a weight and a noose around you financially. And so for some comfort, you're going to, take away your ability to have flexibility and enjoy a peaceful and simple life, So, yeah. I was just curious if you guys ran into that too, because that's certainly something that in my experience, I get people all the time that call up and, divorce, unfortunately, has been around forever, right? So, and they'll be like, who should keep the house, or what's the value of the house? How do I take equity out of the house? And, I need to pay off this person. I'm going to keep my 401k, but I'm going to use my part. I'm going to use the equity in the house to pay off keeping the full 401k. So what do I do to cash that out? And, we'll discuss what's the best route to do to access that equity, especially if there's a lot of equity in the house, which, if they've been around a long time, and a lot of times there is. So
if they really want to keep the house and we just think that it could be financially draining for that person, we will run the analysis and show them of A, this is what it looks like if you could keep the house and you have all of these expenses.
Yeah.
And B, this is what it looks like if you sell the house, get cash on hand, and maybe find a different residence. So we'll be able to show that comparison, which I think that is what everyone kind of needs when they're making that decision.
Yeah.
And we send them to Josh Reed at Agape if looking for a new house or refinancing or anything related to, maybe taking out a new mortgage and finding a new home. That's where we're not the experts there. We need to make sure they're partnered with a mortgage expert.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I love about Resource 1 too is that you guys will really work as a team there. So even though you can be handling the divorce part and give them advice on that, once some of that's been figured out, you guys can reallocate those assets with the people who are best behind you, and those guys will have your back and make sure that they all get exactly where they need to go. And sometimes reshuffling things too, like sometimes people, I'm sure you guys run into this, but some of the common things that I find is, okay, now before your husband had a big life insurance policy, you really didn't. And now you need to consider that, because if you're going to keep the house and something were to happen, how do you want to handle the house?
You need a completely new financial plan. And if anyone here is listening who is either going through a divorce or knows someone going through a divorce, you mentioned the word life insurance.
Yes.
Having a life insurance policy, like ironclad in a divorce settlement.
Highlight it in your head right now.
What if
insurance?
What if husband and wife get divorced? Husband's the income earner, wife had stayed at home. What if there's some alimony and child support to take care of the kids?
Yeah.
If he's gone, those kids, what are they going to do to take care of the
It's
kids?
about the family support at the end of the day. Like
the family dynamic just changed, and now you got to reconfigure.
Yeah.
And I'd even say, even if somebody was going through divorce, but let's say they lost a spouse, calling you guys might be good too, just on that aspect, because your expertise really goes beyond divorce, but it's helping people emotionally refigure out their lives now that a spouse is gone. And so if you're somebody maybe, and then this just kind of hit me as you guys were talking, so sorry if I'm taking this a little off, but I was just thinking, hey, if somebody lost a spouse, to a tragic accident, accident on the highway, whatever, and now you've got a woman who's got 2 or 3 kids trying to refigure out life. Who better to call than somebody who's already dealing with other people who are having to deal with that emotional part, who are having to refigure out their life, figure out, can I keep the house, refigure out the life insurance policies, all that stuff. I mean, it sounds like that would be another aspect of what you guys do, not just for divorces, but for people who have maybe gone through some kind of catastrophic event where a spouse is now being removed from the picture, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's definitely both of which are just horrible situations and experiences to be in. And you aren't yourself after them, and you feel alone and isolated, even if you aren't. So it's one of those things that, if we can help you, or if we can even find people that you need that aren't even, if it's not CDFA work and it's something that you need help emotionally, you can still reach out to us.
We have a great resource.
We do. We have a great resource for that. I mean, we have resources.
We have a great resource network of just attorneys, of therapists, of, again, real estate agents, mortgage experts.
It's incredible. It's just the support system that we have found in doing this that, we didn't know until we got in and we came across the issues, and we're like, okay, we need some people in our corner that we know that we can depend on as much as we know we can depend on, each other and our team on the inside. Like we like to surround ourselves. And so we found that for them too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We just want to make sure that we don't, I tell people all the time, and I feel like she just makes fun of me when I do it, but I tell them, I'm like, you're never going to get rid of us. You're not. Even when we're done with you, you're going to be in a different part of life that we're still just going to try to, walk you through and help you through. We're never going to abandon you. We're never going to leave you. We're just going to maybe push you to a different expert for whatever you need at the time. But
yeah, well, your needs are forever evolving, right? So
they are.
You have your family house, then you have your retirement house. A lot of times you have sometimes an in-between, right? So you upsize, you can downsize, and your assets, you're building at one point, eventually you're living off of them at another point, finding the point that you should stop working, or maybe, work, but maybe decrease the workload, so quality of life. There's all sorts of things. We all have things in our life that hinder us, especially as we get older. My body lets me know all the time that I'm a little bit older. And
oh, yeah. Sitting next to her all the time, I'm like, I feel that 9-year age difference. It's right there. I get it.
I'm good. And then I go to the gym, and I'll come out of the gym and I have aches and pains that I used to not have 20 years ago. And so, I just remind myself that it's just part of being a little bit older. But those things sometimes catch up to people. You need a knee replacement. And now you got 6 weeks where your life has just changed. And if you're dependent upon, say you're self-employed and you're dependent upon being on your feet, you may have to rethink things for a period of time, and having experts around you to help you reconfigure your life as changes occur.
That's why everybody needs an emergency fund with 3 to 6 months worth of expenses.
Hey, that's easier said. That's easier said than done when you got everything's doubled and tripled in life. Come on.
I know.
Even our government's in that predicament. So I love it. I keep reading all these great articles about the funds from the inflation stuff that was supposed to fight the inflation. And we've got like billions of dollars worth of supplies rusting on the side because inflation jumped up and they can't afford to install like wind farms and stuff. Like we got all this equipment we bought, billions of dollars worth, but can't install it. So
can't find anyone to work to install the.
Well, they got workers. They're all coming through the South. 7.2 million of them. So, but that creates another problem on my end. I mean, honestly, if we're getting into the whole financial thing, 7.2 million people, those people are going to get acclimated. People go, well, they're not going to buy houses. I go, no, but 4 or 5 will get together. They'll get jobs and they'll rent an apartment. Mm-hmm. And that was an apartment that would have been for a college kid.
Yep.
Or for a young couple. And so now that couple right now, statistically, young people have not been at home as late as they are due to finances since the Great Depression. Yeah, 1940s. You'd have to go back to the early 1940s to find people living with their parents later in life like we do now because of just being forced financially. It's not because they want to, a lot of them.
Yeah.
It's because they're forced financially. They cannot afford rent at $1,500 for... You're finding a lot of young families starting in their parents' basements now.
Yeah.
So
I've seen that a lot.
More and more. And when that goes back to just needs talking to a financial advisor. If you've got kids staying at home, how to help them get on a plan to start saving for that down payment house. What assets should they put into? Because some assets allow you to be able to use them and leverage them for down payment. Others don't.
Yeah. It's just such financial planning. Like, I feel like it's just such a simple step to take that people just don't because you think it's so much harder than it actually is. So,
well, I think sometimes too they think that they've got to pay some wicked fee for it.
Or you think it's going to be you just have to have X amount of money going forward. I'm like, no, you could have $10 and we can still tell you how to,
where to start on it. Yeah.
You just have to start. That's the hard part. Just start.
My wealthiest clients started out the poorest, and they'll tell me stories of using the same bathwater, never getting new clothes, etc. And now they have more than what they will ever need. And that's all because they started early and often. Nobody won the lottery. Nobody became an executive in these situations. And they're where they're at today because they paid themselves first. They started out with just a little bit early on in life, and time and compound interest did their thing. And Investment News published an article last week of my story sharing that example. If they can do it, anyone can do it. And I completely get there's high cost of living, inflation. If we have enough money to go to the bar on the weekend, we have enough money to save for the future.
Yeah, I tell people Starbucks coffee. If you get 4 Starbucks coffee a month, just take that money. That's roughly almost $40 a month, and put it aside.
Yeah.
Do that for a year. Several $100. Several $100 now invested, making compound interest.
Spending what you were spending anyway.
Yeah. Yep. And then go buy a 25-cent coffee or make one at home and take it with you.
Exactly.
You can still have coffee.
Yes.
Just won't be as luxurious.
Well, now I'm not going to let my husband listen to this because he's going to be like, Josh said you could make coffee at home. And I'm just going to have to say no.
Not the same.
Sorry,
I gotta have my Starbucks coffee, or I gotta have
chocolate added.
Yeah. Well, it's when I'm listening to you guys, that's such a unique niche. And I see the team work and camaraderie. Is there anything that you would tell people as we kind of wrap up that they should consider, as they're maybe facing this or considering this?
Yeah, if this is something that's on the brain for someone, going through a divorce or considering a divorce or knows someone going through a divorce, knowing who would benefit from a certified divorce financial analyst is huge. If you have a high amount of assets or debts, if someone owns a business, that gets real messy and can get a little tangled up. We know how to navigate that situation. Again, if someone stayed at home and sacrificed a career opportunity to raise a family, or if one spouse just wasn't well versed in the finances, that's an overwhelming and confusing feeling. So we're here to really guide you through the numbers, hold your hand, be there for you emotionally as you are financially overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Or if financial abuse has occurred where maybe non-marital or marital funds were being used on non-marital expenses, or if there's, one person I encountered, the husband took out a joint credit card and racked up a lot of debt on a joint credit card without the other person knowing those transactions happened. So financial abuse is unfortunately something very real, and you might not even know it's happening.
Yeah.
So if you meet any of those categories, if that's you or you know someone in that situation, that's where CDFA can really benefit you. Not everyone might not need a CDFA if they're both pretty financially literate, but there's certain situations where CDFA, the value, will really help save in the long run on a divorce settlement.
And there's no cost to reach out to you and just have a conversation with you. So
Absolutely not. We do 1 hour free consults. So even if it's something that you aren't sure if a CDFA could help or not, absolutely you could reach out. And if at the end of an hour, you tell us everything and it's something that we can't add value to, we just tell you you're not, it's not something that we would add value to, but we still don't leave you at that point. We do have resources. We have other avenues of other people that we could send you to. So it's still not just 1 hour free consult. We send you off on your way if we can't help you. We like,
right, and you're not doing a hard sell.
yeah, no.
I know you guys well enough to know that.
We just hear you out.
We encourage reconciliation.
Yeah, we do. Absolutely.
That's awesome. I love that.
We do like to specifically say, I say this all the time, like we do not promote getting a divorce. I do not go out into the world and say, hey, you should split with your husband. You should get divorced. If it is at all possible to reconcile, that is what we are behind. We just want healthy, happy families. And if that happens to have to be something that's split for you, then we're in your corner.
Well, I like how you said that's important to you, and I liked how you talked at the beginning of praying about things when John asked you to do this. I mean, those are things that are important. You want somebody who has part of the emotional part is the spiritual part, right? And so they're closely tied to each other in a lot of ways. So we want to make sure that we're helping people. If at all possible, find reconciliation and finding mediators that can help them maybe work through. Because sometimes people feel like they're overwhelmed, that they can't work through a situation. So it's just easier to jump out, especially in today's society. We're a lot of people call the young people snowflakes. You can use whatever term you want to, but they're just not tough. They say tough times develop tough men, right? And so, and to some degree, we're in softer times financially. Our society's never had more, and so it's easy to flake out a lot easier and just say I'll start over. In a society that almost promotes it to some degree and doesn't want to work through the difficult things. But sometimes having somebody there say, you know what, this isn't that difficult. Doesn't sound to me like you couldn't work through this. Have you really thought this through, or is this just that you just got emotional? You had the situation take you by surprise. I mean, COVID, a great example. COVID attacked everybody.
It did,
and everybody responded differently. And you can hold that against people, and there still are. There's people, 4 years later, they're mad and this was unjust, or we can give each other grace and realize everybody responded differently. And maybe a better way is to give each other a little bit of grace and realize that, that was just their knee-jerk response. It wasn't your knee-jerk response, and that's okay. And maybe you dealt with it healthier, but maybe they didn't have the upbringing you did, and maybe they just need a little help to help deal with situations, I mean, I grew up in a household where my dad, his dad was a very angry man, and so the way he dealt with stress was to explode. He would bottle it up and then it would explode. And it wasn't like he abused me or anything like that. It was just, it would come out as a very explosive type, verbally, whatever. And it wasn't necessarily always aimed at anybody. It was just, didn't know how to handle the stress, right? And so he just didn't know how to handle it healthily. And I know early on in my marriage, that was one of the things that I had dealt with. And so, I can joke about it today. I've said it before on another podcast, probably about a year ago, but I literally one time got so mad at my wife, I chucked the devotional into the side of the wall, right? So, here I took something that was precious about God's word and chucked it inside a wall because I didn't understand how to handle stress. And it took some other men kind of helping me walk through that. And that, I was a better husband for it, right? I was a better father for it and a better man for it. But it would have been easier for my wife to just say, oh man, I'm checking out. That guy, he exploded that way. That's not how I like it. My dad did that and I'm not into that. But credit to my wife. She was like, I'm going to trust the Lord to work in his life and
give people grace.
Exactly. Give them grace and encouragement, maybe to go find some men to help them walk through that, or find some other women to walk through that. My wife on the other side of things, her dad divorced. He just walked in basically one day and said, I'm out. I've got another woman.
Oh.
And, already he was an attorney, dealt with a lot of dark things and stuff like that. And so trust early on in our marriage was very hard for my wife because the person she should most depend on for trust, which was her father, had broken that. And so she was just waiting for the opportunity for her husband to break that trust too. Mm-hmm. And so, we had to build safeguards into our marriage, some things that are non-negotiable. And then there had to be grace given on some areas where I had to go, hey, you're going to have to give here. That's not practical in a real world scenario. And, and working through those, finding women for her to walk with her through some of those situations, to assure her, and reassure her, is important. And so having advocates like that, sometimes I think people get into situations and they feel like my spouse is never going to change. Well, that's not a really good attitude. And it could be true. I mean, there are situations where people are abused verbally or physically, and there may be a time, there's a biblical example where male and female have to separate for a time in the Bible, and there may be a need for separation too while things are being addressed. And so I think having advocates that are looking through all those situations on your behalf, giving you nudges where you need them, and allowing listening ear. Sometimes people just need to be able to vent. Yeah. I find that a lot. I mean, we're in a world where
we find that a lot. Yeah.
Well, I think we're in a world where the only place people vent is when they know nobody's really listening on social media. They can say anything they want, but they're nameless, really.
Yeah.
And they can be as mean and nasty as they want, and they can get as mean and nasty responses as people can give, right? I mean, and so that's not healthy.
Yeah.
That's not healthy. There's no physical touch, and there's no direct communication. It's really, you could be talking to robots, and chances are 100 people who responded to you are probably from, Russia and China, and they're bots anyways, right? So, I go back and say just that personal one-on-one, being able to talk to somebody who understands, who's got a listening ear, and who can give you that little touch, and remind you that you're human.
Yeah.
That emotional intelligence, and that's what we pride ourselves on at Resource One Advisors, and is what makes us stand out as a group. Like I said, yes, we look at numbers, we run reports, but we actually hold your hand. We give you a hug. We're there for you
in meetings. I mean, I have sat across from women and cried with them because it's just heartbreaking, and you want to explain and say, I promise at the end of the day, you're going to be okay. You will. It's just, you hold their hand. You want what's best for them. You want them to feel as okay as they are going to be at the end of the day. And I mean, I think that's probably one of my favorite parts of the job is that initial hour, because even if we can't help you, you have vented, you have gotten out something that you needed to get out. Well, we think it's super important for that to be heard for people in that situation. So I really enjoy that connection with them, of whether or not it goes anywhere after, it doesn't matter at all. That hour with them is what matters to them, to us. How can we help you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. How can we help you?
Yeah. How can we help you? Even if that's sending you to
We're called to serve.
Anybody else. Yeah, we are called to serve 100%. And this is a unique way that's allowed us to do that. And we're both very grateful for that.
I like that. I think I'm going to have to title this episode Called to Serve. I like it. That's good.
We both very much feel that. So yeah.
Very cool. All right, guys. So if you need to reach out, you're going through, or maybe you know somebody going through something, and divorce is part of the conversation, or maybe somebody's had a traumatic event in their life and lost a spouse. Unfortunately, reach out to these young women. I call you young because you're younger than me, and they will gladly love on you and help you through this situation. They're certified. They're certified to do such, but more than that, they're qualified, and they're qualified because the Lord has placed them where you need them to be at Resource One. So reach out to Nikki and Danielle, or Danielle and Nikki, however you want to call it. There's not really a first or second. It's a team, and the folks at Resource One, and they would be glad to do so. I always say it at the end of our episode, but I'm just going to say it now because, if you need to reach out to them, you can do so at 636-458-1798. And again, that's 636-458-1798. Was there anything else you guys want to say before I wrap us up?
No, thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. All right. Well, don't forget to support those other sponsors. Chris at CS Design at 573-436-3717. And Jeff Earhart with State Farm at 314-821-JEFF or 5333. And you might just hear my normal co-host, Scotty, on the other line over there. And with that said, we'll catch you guys next episode. Thank you so much for checking in with us.
You're safe.